Our village has a spooky custom: all women are required to undergo a virginity test before marriage. If a woman is found not to be pure, she will be abandoned by her fiancé's family. An abandoned woman becomes an object of amusement for all the men in the village. My sister had always been virtuous, but she was somehow found to be impure on the eve of her wedding. That night, our door was pounded by men from the village. My sister and her fiancé had grown up together, and she loved him deeply, waiting for the day she could marry him. According to village rules, my sister had to be examined by Granny Chin on her wedding day. Only if she was found to be chaste could she marry into her husband's family. My sister couldn't wait to marry her fiancé. She was eager, unlike other women who felt nervous and shy during these examinations.
Granny, please hurry up. I'm afraid I'll miss the auspicious hour.
My sister urged. Granny Chin smiled, her tone slightly mocking.
I know you're in a hurry, but this must be done according to customs. You're the one who needs to cooperate. Lie down first.
My sister quickly realized what was happening and lay down on the bed. During the examination, many unmarried women come to watch, supposedly to gain experience for their own weddings. My mom pushed me into the room, saying I was nearing marriage age and should learn from my sister to avoid being laughed at later. The room was full of women watching Granny Chin examine my sister. My sister lay on the bed with her legs wide apart. Granny Chin used a stick-like object to inspect her. My sister frowned, her hands clenched the bed sheet.
Granny, is it done?
Her voice trembled, and her expression showed how unpleasant the experience was. Granny Chin pulled out the stick and scowled, saying nothing. Seeing this, my sister asked again.
What's wrong, Granny? Why aren't you speaking?
Granny Chin shook her head.
This wedding might not happen.
Hearing this, my sister reacted immediately.
What do you mean? Why can't it happen? Today is my wedding day, don't say unlucky things.
Granny Chin scoffed.
Don't pretend you don't know our village's rules. You're not pure, yet you expect to get married?
My sister looked stunned. Before she could respond, Granny Chin stormed out of the room. Soon, her voice echoed outside.
Our village's customs are strict, but some people don't respect themselves. I won't attend this wedding, it's unlucky.
By custom, after the examination, Granny Chin must immediately inform the groom's side. Seeing Granny Chin leave, my sister hastily dressed and ran out. Don't listen to her, she's lying. I'm pure. Ah Jian, will you believe me? She clutched her fiancé's sleeve, her expression tense and pleading. Her fiancé's face was unyielding after hearing Granny Chen's words. He pushed my sister away. I never thought you were like that. You have the nerve to ask me to believe you? Everyone knows Granny Chin never makes mistakes. My sister still didn't give up, grabbing his hand again. Ah Jian, we grew up together, don't you know what I'm like? I'm really pure. He kicked her to the ground, shouting, Get out. Dirty woman. Just looking at you brings bad luck. My sister sat on the ground, tears streaming down her face. She tried to crawl towards him, but he walked away, saying, Follow the village rules. If she's so immoral, let the village men take care of her. After her fiancé left, my sister stared blankly in his direction, tears flowing continuously. Seeing her like that, I felt uneasy. People around us pointed and whispered. My parents were so ashamed they hid inside. I tried to help my sister up, but she was like a still pond, unmoving. Let's go home. If your fiancé doesn't believe you, he doesn't deserve you. Let's leave, we'll never come back. Hearing this, her emotions slowly calmed. She didn't speak but wiped away her tears and followed me back into the house. According to custom, the village men would come to our house that night. My parents would likely give my sister away, so I had to take her away before nightfall. Our village is surrounded by mountains, the only way out is through them. I told my sister my plan, but she didn't want to escape. We can't escape, I've explored these mountains, they're all cliffs and steep slopes.
She looked out the window with a complex expression.
I think we should abolish this shameful custom instead. Why must we women suffer like this? My sister turned to me with a determined look. I didn't understand what she meant. Changing a custom that's been around for over 100 years seemed impossible. Why not just sneak away? There are so many people here, how can you get them to agree? My sister sighed and told me to take care of myself, dismissing me from her room. No matter how I knocked, she wouldn't open the door. As night approached, I wondered if my sister had given up. According to village rules, a woman who loses her virginity before marriage has no right to resist and must wait at home for the men. I didn't want my sister to suffer, so I locked the door to stall. But before nightfall, the door was pounded again. I peeked through the crack and saw a man outside. This was against the rules, they shouldn't arrive until night. It's not dark yet. What are you doing here?
Go away. I used to be too polite, but now I felt disgusted. The man wasn't angry, instead, he looked pleased.
Don't be angry, I'm here to save your sister. Open the door, and we can talk. His tone was flattering, but I found it distasteful. When I didn't open the door, he revealed his intention.
You don't want your sister to be mistreated, right? I can save her if she agrees to marry me.
I didn't know him well, but I remembered seeing him before. I had heard about this rule: if a woman is found impure, she can avoid punishment if she marries another man who agrees to take her. Unexpectedly, this man was willing to marry my sister. Although he wasn't attractive and looked a bit eerie, he was the only one who could save her now. However, I was concerned about his intentions.
Why do you want to marry my sister? What do you get from this? Don't you fear being ridiculed by the villagers?
The man lowered his head, hesitating. Actually, I've liked your sister for a long time, but she's always been focused on Xinjian. She's beautiful and kind, I know she wouldn't look my way, so I kept my feelings hidden. Now that I have this chance, I won't miss it. His voice was firm, and his eyes shone with determination. I had to trust him for now and save my sister first. I wanted to tell her about it, but she wouldn't open the door no matter how loud I called. I had no choice but to find my parents. When my parents heard that someone was willing to marry my sister, they were overjoyed.
Thank goodness! Now your sister's wedding can finally be arranged.
My mom exclaimed excitedly. She was thrilled and started clapping. Our family has 3 kids, an older brother, my sister is the second, and I'm the youngest. My sister and I were essentially born to be married off to bring in dowry money for our brother's wedding and to repair our house. Originally, our brother's engagement was about to be finalized, but after my sister's incident, his wedding plans were delayed. Now that someone was willing to marry my sister, our brother's wedding plans could move forward again. My mom rushed out to open the door in excitement. But when she saw the man, her face fell.
What? You? Can you afford a dowry? I'm telling you, it's not happening without $100,000.
The man wasn't offended, he smiled. Don't worry, I can afford it. Upon hearing that the man could afford the dowry, my mom's face lit up again. She immediately welcomed him in. However, my dad's expression changed.
Zhang Erwa, you think you can marry my daughter? Do you have money?
My dad clearly looked down on him. My mom grew nervous at my dad's tone, tugging on his sleeve and giving him serious looks. But my dad ignored them. My mom ended up telling my dad the truth right in front of Zhang Erwa.
Honey, Zhang Erwa can afford the dowry.
Once my dad heard that Zhang Erwa could pay the dowry, his attitude softened. He even offered Zhang Erwa a cigarette. When I heard my dad call the man Zhang Erwa, I gradually remembered him. He was infamous in our village for being ugly and poor, with many siblings. As a child, he would often follow my sister around. As everyone grew older, he stopped following my sister. It seems he genuinely liked my sister. This thought relieved me a bit. For my parents, as long as the man could pay the dowry, it didn't matter who he was. So, they agreed to the marriage right away. After they settled the arrangements, night fell, and the village men arrived on schedule. They pounded on our door, calling out, "Open up! What's going on? Do you want to violate village rules?" They threatened to remove the door if we didn't comply. Facing their pressure, my mom cursed and ran to open the door.
Tonight's trip is pointless. Someone is marrying my daughter.
She spoke haughtily, looking down on them. The leader sneered.
Someone's marrying your daughter? You must be dreaming. Someone willing to marry a used woman?
The men behind him joined in the ridicule. My mom, enraged, pulled Zhang Erwa out.
See? He's the one marrying her.
Zhang Erwa stood before the men, his head almost bowed to the ground. The leader laughed when he saw Zhang Erwa.
You're the one marrying a used woman? No wonder, with your ugly face, you're only good for someone like that.
Zhang Erwa hung his head even lower. Just as they were laughing, my sister's door creaked open. Everyone turned to look, but I didn't see my sister emerge. The door seemed to open by itself. As I looked at the empty room, I felt a sudden chill. I rushed in to find a large pool of blood on the floor. My sister lay in her wedding dress, covered in blood. She had died by slitting her wrists. I wanted to rush to her, but my body felt frozen. I couldn't move or speak. I just stood there like a statue, staring. My parents and the men outside were curious and walked closer. When they saw the scene, they were frightened and fled. Only my parents and Zhang Erwa remained. My parents weren't sad about my sister's death. Instead, they asked Zhang Erwa if he still intended to pay the dowry. Zhang Erwa ignored them and walked to my sister. He carefully lifted her from the floor and placed her on the bed. He cleaned her bloodstains and gently moved her. I couldn't read his thoughts, but his expression seemed sorrowful. After finishing, he left our house. My mom cursed him as he left.
You said you would marry her, and now you just leave like that? Even though she's dead, she could still keep you company for one night.
No matter how my mom cursed, he didn't turn back. Zhang Erwa left, and my mom continued yelling at my sister's body through the night. The village coffin maker arrived at dawn.
I heard your older daughter died.
He had a lugubrious air about him. My mom was unpleasant upon seeing him and started cursing.
Get out! I won't buy a coffin from you.
But he didn't budge. He warned.
I came because she died on her wedding day, wearing a bloody wedding dress. This is a serious taboo. She's bringing disaster upon our village.
The coffin maker suggested using a cypress wood coffin, a rooster over 3 years old, to seal the grave, and burying her in a location known for its young energy. My mom was skeptical and thought he just wanted to sell her a coffin. He snapped back, "Believe it or not, if you don't bury her by noon, your family will be cursed." The coffin maker left, and my mom spat in his direction but relayed his words to my dad. My dad was furious. Women just gossip all day. You've lived in this village for decades but still don't understand. Can we afford to ignore what the coffin maker said? His family has a reputation, we can't offend them. Quick, go fetch him back. My mom scurried to get the coffin maker, who returned with a slightly softer expression after seeing my dad's sincerity. I've told your wife everything. The cypress wood coffin is expensive, but for the village's safety, I'll sell it cheaper. My mom's smile faltered when she heard the price, $2,000? You're outrageous. My dad scolded her with a stern look, silencing her. We'll give you whatever you want, my dad promised, trying to appease him. When the cypress coffin arrived, my mom handed me some clothes and told me to change my sister into them. Hurry up, her presence makes me feel unlucky. She's cost us enough money even after death. The coffin maker said we had to take off my sister's wedding dress and put on the funeral attire to calm her spirit. Looking at the wedding dress, I felt a bitter irony. She had waited so eagerly for her wedding day. The dress was embroidered by her own hands, made to look beautiful for the man she loved. In the end, it became her prison. My sister loved beauty and said this was her most beautiful outfit. I didn't want to take away her last chance at beauty. After dressing her in the black funeral attire, I styled her hair again. Only when my mom called from outside did I reluctantly leave the room. I watched silently as my sister was placed into the coffin. After the coffin was closed, the coffin maker pricked my finger and had me smear my blood on the coffin seams. Once sealed, he placed a rooster on top. The rooster stood calmly, not moving. From preparation to burial, everything went quickly. At noon, the rooster suddenly let out a loud crow. The coffin maker said this signified that my sister was successfully subdued. Now, we had to keep the rooster safe and well. It couldn't be eaten or sold, we had to care for it until it died naturally. If the rooster died prematurely, my sister might break free from her tomb. Back home, my dad almost idolized the rooster until my brother returned. My brother had recently gone to work in another town but returned because he was tired of laboring. He had been away for a short time. The next day, he slaughtered the rooster because it pecked him. My parents were out shopping when they found the rooster missing. They panicked until they saw my brother holding a plucked chicken. My dad was so shocked he collapsed on the spot.
Where did you catch the chicken?
My dad stuttered. My brother innocently waved the chicken.
It flew out of the room and pecked me, so I killed it.
The room he mentioned was where we kept the rooster. It's over, it's over! My dad exclaimed upon realizing the rooster was dead. His face was expressionless, like a deflated balloon. My brother remained puzzled, but when he heard the explanation, he chuckled and teased my dad.
You've grown old and believe in such superstitions. Whether she becomes a ghost or demon, I'm not afraid.
My brother took the rooster to cook it, completely unbothered. Only my dad seemed devastated. Just hours after the rooster died, word arrived that my sister's grave had been disturbed. My dad rushed to the cemetery with the coffin maker and my mom. Upon seeing the grave, the coffin maker remained silent for a while before speaking.
This grave wasn't dug up from the outside, it was opened from within.
What do you mean? My dad asked, terrified. Luckily, my mom caught him before he fell into the grave.
The grave was opened from inside means your daughter climbed out.
The coffin maker said coldly.
She shouldn't have risen. What have you done?
My mom nervously glanced at my dad, then stuttered. It was my son Dutch Young, he killed the rooster. The coffin maker was outraged.
Foolishness! You were told not to touch that rooster.
My parents were berated, too scared to respond. My brother still seemed unconvinced.
A chicken can be so powerful?
My dad's gaze silenced my brother. Our family hung their heads, quietly listening to the coffin maker's reprimand. When he finished, my dad hesitantly asked what to do next. The coffin maker sighed and explained. If your daughter chose a violent way to end her life, it means she has unfinished business. Now that she's risen, her first task will be to resolve those issues. He glanced at my parents meaningfully. My mom didn't understand.
What issues? What does she want to do? She wants revenge, of course.
The coffin maker took a deep breath, visibly unwilling to explain further. She would target whoever she hated most in life. We need to lure her out so I can subdue her again. According to the coffin maker's analysis, my parents believed my sister most hated her fiancé, Qinjian. If he hadn't rejected her, she wouldn't have ended her life.
If that's true, she'll seek revenge tonight at Qinjian's house.
We just need to be there waiting. My brother opposed the idea.
You go, I'm not going to waste my time.
My dad pulled my brother's arm, signaling him to be quiet. My brother ignored him and left. My dad awkwardly explained to the coffin maker, he's been working hard away from home and wants to rest. The coffin maker wasn't interested in my brother's excuses and began preparing talismans and red threads. Tonight, we'll go to Qinjian's house. Use these red threads to surround it without letting him know. For success, we must keep him unaware. My parents nodded anxiously, eager not to disappoint. The coffin maker said my sister would appear at midnight when the yin energy is strongest. We had to set up our plan before then. After setting up, we were given charms to conceal our human aura so my sister wouldn't find us. We hid in a nearby thicket and waited. When the coffin maker called us out, we emerged, relieved to stretch our stiff legs. It's strange, she didn't show up. Are you sure Qin Jian is the person she hates most? The coffin maker was perplexed, looking at my parents. Tonight's setup was for nothing. The coffin maker had us retrieve the red threads as dawn approached. Villagers usually didn't leave their homes early, but today many people gathered on the main road. My mom, always eager for gossip, went to inquire. She returned looking panicked. Qin Nai is dead. Qin Nai was the woman who performed the virginity tests. I remembered she seemed healthy, how could she die? My mom ran to us, composed herself, and continued. People are heading to Qin Nai's house. They say she died strangely, like being scared to death. Scared to death? The coffin maker repeated my mom's words thoughtfully. Let's go and see. We followed him to Qin Nai's house, where many people were outside. They made way for the coffin maker. Inside, Qin Nai lay with her legs open, similar to the women during virginity tests. The coffin maker examined her, her face is pale, eyes bulged, mouth open, with blood from 7 orifices. She was scared to death by something evil. Everyone stepped back in fear. Not my daughter, right? Could Ashwang have done this?
My mom whispered. The coffin maker pulled out a device resembling a compass.
This soul catcher will show if there's any connection between your daughter and Qin Nai's death. If Qin Nai was killed by my sister, there would be lingering energy. Since we lived with my sister, we would have some of her energy on us. We needed to collect this energy using the soul catcher to confirm if my sister was involved. After using the soul catcher on us and Qin Nai, the coffin maker's brow furrowed as he examined the device. After a while, he spoke. Qin Nai was indeed killed by your daughter Ashwang. Upon hearing this, my parents were terrified, barely able to stand.
You said she hated Qin Jian the most, but she killed Qin Nai first. That means you two are hiding something from me.
The coffin maker's face reddened with anger. My mom was terrified and began explaining.
We didn't deceive you, we had no idea she had issues with Qin Nai.
I believed my mom, she never managed us much, so she wouldn't know anything about my sister's conflicts. However, the coffin maker didn't trust her. The argument was interrupted when Li Erwa stepped forward from the crowd, looking much thinner and less spirited than before. Li Erwa whispered something to my parents and then to the coffin maker. Afterward, my parents and the coffin maker left Qin Nai's house. I followed them out. Once we were alone, the coffin maker impatiently asked Li Erwa to speak. Unexpectedly, Li Erwa knelt before him.
Please save me, I don't want to die.
Everyone was surprised by this sudden turn. Facing the unexpected change, we were all momentarily stunned.
What's going on? Just say it, why are you kneeling?
The coffin maker tried to get Li Erwa to stand and explain, but Li Erwa remained kneeling. After stammering, Li Erwa finally explained. It was indirectly my fault that Ashwang died. We were shocked. Li Erwa had previously offered to marry my sister after she was found impure. He seemed genuinely in love with her, but now he claimed to have caused her death. Li Erwa revealed everything he had done. He had liked my sister but knew she didn't return his feelings. Recently, he came into unexpected wealth and used it to bribe Qin Nai. His plan was for Qin Nai to declare my sister impure so Qin Jian wouldn't marry her, allowing Li Erwa to propose next. However, he hadn't expected my sister to commit suicide. Since my sister's death, he had been eating poorly and couldn't sleep. When Qin Nai died, he knew my sister must have returned for revenge. Desperate to live, he sought the coffin maker's help. My mom was furious, slapping Li Erwa repeatedly.
It's all because of you. If not for you, I wouldn't have lost my daughter.
She was lamenting the dowry she lost. Li Erwa didn't resist, staying on his knees. the coffin maker sighed. You'll be used as bait to lure Ashwang out. Chin Nai Nai is dead, and you're likely her next target. I'll set up an array at your home tonight. You mustn't show any weakness. Li Erwa was overjoyed that the coffin maker was willing to help, eagerly kowtowing. To ensure success, the coffin maker had Li Erwa bring Chen Jian to his house and also told our family to go. His plan was to gather everyone my sister might have a grudge against in one place to ensure he could capture her. Before entering the house, the coffin maker gave each of us a pill to save our lives in critical moments. After we took the pills, he let us enter the house. We watched the clock, our hearts racing as it approached midnight. 12 o'clock arrived with wind that whistled through the trees, sounding like a woman crying. It was chilling. After the wind died down, I sensed a familiar presence, my sister's aura.
Is that you, sister?
I said, startling the others.
Where is she? I don't see her.
My mom snapped before her hand seemed to be frozen in midair, as if grasped by an unseen force. My mom shrieked in terror, seeing her hand immobilized. The others rushed to the door, only to find it wouldn't open.
Ashwang has come! Coffin Master, please contain her!
My dad pounded on the door, but there was no response outside. Suddenly, my mom's hand snapped, and she cried out. "Ah, it hurts so much." Then, my sister materialized behind her. My dad and the others were terrified, desperate to break down the door. My sister wore her red wedding dress, her wrists still bleeding. She floated towards Chen Jian and spoke. "We grew up together. I thought our bond was strong enough for you to trust me, but I guess I was wrong. You're just like the other men." Her anger chilled the room.
Please forgive me, Ashwang, I was wrong.
Chen Jian begged on his knees. "We didn't wrong you, please spare us." My mom also knelt, pleading for mercy. My brother, a non-believer in the supernatural, had been stunned for a while, seemingly lost for words. My sister seemed to enjoy their fear, delaying her attack. Just as she did, the coffin maker's voice came from outside. As soon as my parents heard the coffin maker's voice, they began pleading for help. But he wasn't there to save them. "This whole thing is your doing," he said. "To ensure the village's safety, I have to sacrifice your lives. The pills I gave you were crucial for activating the array. You'll die in exchange for the rest of the village's lives. It's a worthy sacrifice." Just as the coffin maker finished speaking, my parents suddenly collapsed, their bodies curled in agony, their faces twisted in pain. The coffin maker must have triggered the array, intending for us to die along with my sister. However, he had no idea I hadn't swallowed the pill. I secretly spat it out after entering the house. Without me as part of the array, his plan couldn't work. My sister and I watched coldly as they writhed on the floor until they succumbed to agony. Outside, the coffin maker assumed his plan was successful and kicked open the door with confidence. But upon seeing only their lifeless bodies, his smile vanished. "Where's the other person?" The coffin maker quickly realized something was wrong and tried to leave, but my sister wouldn't let him escape. "Think you can run? You think you can go anywhere?" I was hiding behind the door and shut it as he attempted to flee. When the coffin maker saw us, his expression changed to panic. How did you?" I assume he wanted to know why we didn't fall for his trap. My sister didn't give him a chance to finish. Without the array to protect him, the coffin maker was powerless. She simply raised her hand and killed him. In one night, my parents, brother, the coffin maker, Li Erwa, and Chen Jian were all dead. My sister said she initially only meant to kill Chen Nai Nai and Li Erwa, but others inadvertently put themselves in harm's way. My sister had taken her own life. She told me that those who commit suicide aren't accepted by the afterlife and must roam the earth. But she was thrilled to have the power to abolish the village's shameful custom.
Now, the women in our village will never suffer this humiliation again,
she exclaimed. Epilogue. It wasn't until after my sister's death that I understood her plan. She wanted to use her life to bring dignity to all the village women. By becoming a vengeful spirit, she would command respect from the villagers. That's why I secretly sabotaged the coffin maker's plans. I didn't remove the wedding dress from my sister's body. The funeral attire was loose, so it wasn't noticeable when worn over it. The rooster's death was also part of my plan. I knew my brother's temper would ensure its demise. I always trusted my sister, even as a vengeful spirit. When the coffin maker gave me a pill, I had no intention of taking it. I faked swallowing it to placate him. Unbeknownst to me, this disrupted his array. Without it, my sister easily overpowered him. Epilogue: my sister's perspective. Qin Jian and I grew up together. I loved him deeply. After many struggles, the day I could marry him finally arrived. But then this happened. I believed our love was strong enough for him to trust me, but he was like the other men, believing Qin Nainai's verdict over mine. He broke my heart. If my sister hadn't suggested running away that day, I might truly have ended my life then. But looking at her innocent face, I had a bold idea. Why must men be unrestricted while women are not? Since purity is expected, it should be expected of both men and women. I knew I couldn't change this tradition alone, but what if I became a vengeful spirit? Would they fear me then? I recalled stories about wearing red robes when dying to become a vengeful spirit. With this plan, I died with a smile. It seemed fate was on my side. I became a vengeful spirit after death. As a ghost, I found out Li Erwa had bribed Qin Nainai to frame me. Qin Nainai, also a woman, chose not to help me and instead conspired with the men. She knew how important purity was for a woman, yet she tried to destroy mine. I hated her more than anyone else, so when I rose from the grave, she was the first one I killed. With her death, the virginity tests would end. After dealing with Li Erwa, I didn't expect the coffin maker's trap. Thankfully, my sister didn't eat the pill, or my efforts would have been for nothing. The coffin maker claimed he was trying to subdue me for the village's sake, but I knew better. He was like the other men, trying to maintain this shameful tradition at any cost. Fortunately, justice was on our side. After solving the coffin maker's problem, I followed my sister to roam the village. She found the village chief and demanded an end to the virginity tests. The chief refused, but after seeing me, he agreed out of fear, striving for gender equality. I continue to haunt the village. If any man mistreats his partner, I appear to scare him. Ultimately, the village achieved true gender equality under my protection.